Assalamu alaikum. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about charity. As Ramadan is here, I really wanted to dive into talking about charity. I am really passionate about this topic and I have viewed it from a few angles, which I will talk about later. But overall, really excited to do this and really just hone in on some of the research and also the truth about, donating and what we really need to do as Muslims. So the first thing that I wanted to dive into was Al-Khadawi's perspective on how zakat can really shape our Muslim identity. The first thing that he mentioned was that once zakat is given to individuals, they are able to properly, devote to worship in the right manner. Because when you're, hustling and bustling, it is harder to devote to worship. Number two is that it purifies Muslims of any sin and dirt that we have within us. It's an act of purification. And then the third thing that he mentioned is that we have a blessing and then we utilize that blessing for his sake only, because Allah is the only one that is in control of our wealth. We do not own our money. It is ultimately Allah. As you can see here, the benefits just based on zakat alone. In terms of some other pieces that I would like to talk about is where we are in terms of our hearts and our minds when it comes to charity. So we are very, very busy people in general. We are media driven. We are multitasking. We want things instant gratification. This is the world that we live in today, and when we are thinking about our charity choices and things like that, we are bombarded by a lot of campaigns on Instagram and on YouTube, and anywhere you go, you're bombarded of where you should donate your money to. If you just search up on Google, build your house in Jannah, you will see pages upon pages of places to donate. They're talking about a standpoint of your house in Jannah. It's good for you to donate. This is good for you and your family. When you die, this is good. It talks about and centers it around the I. And I think this is where I have some critique about this particular sentiment when it comes to donation marketing, is that it never places us as units together, and how we ultimately are as an ummah, and how I feel like zakat was given to us by Allah. It's about cohesion, it's about uplifting, it's about something a little different than what's portrayed at times. So I want to be talking about a little bit of how I see charity as a whole. I see it from different angles. I see it from somebody who has lived low income. I've seen it from perspective of my husband working in a masjid, being a janitor. I've seen it from a perspective of being close to a masjid, living in a dominant Muslim neighborhood. Seeing it from all these different angles, that I'm able to kind of also have not expertise, but just from like an observational standpoint. So the first reflection that I wanted to hone in on is that charity is not just monetary. It is mentioned in Hadith and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ that charity is about goodness. It is about, staying away from evil, doing what Allah has asked us to do. That's basic charity that we are doing for the ummah. That is a basic act that we are doing to provide goodness into the dunya, and that is collected, inshallah, for the hereafter. Another one is smiling, showing good character, handshaking. All these are forms of charity upon our brothers and sisters in Islam, and it is not just based on monetary. And if we could really internalize that and grasp it, is that we would do a lot better. Number two is sincere. We are not visionary Muslims. How do we pivot? How do we make the neighborhood better? We don't sit and be visionary, right? And same with the masjid. Like, I think this is a crucial point when we're giving, donations to the masjid, is that we don't actually care what they do with it. Oh, they'll know, like, they'll know what to do with it, they'll find a way to, put use to it. The donation act is like, I'm doing good and it's going to position me in Jannah. But we're not thinking about let's position more and more Muslims to Jannah. Like the masjid that you're donating to, you're not looking at the outer scope and like, I want this neighborhood to be revived by Islamic morals. I want this for this community. We're not putting ourselves involved into the equation. We're just hoping and like being all positive and things like that, but we're not having a sincere vision for our community at large. Number three, we have to understand this point, which is going to be a very bold point, but we have to understand the politics when it comes to masjids. And we have to understand that there are these things happening within Muslim organizations, which they are very highly connected to government, which is perfectly fine. I mean, we have a land that we live in, and there needs to be abide uh, positions, like there needs to be abide rules that come with property in Canada, right? Having a masjid, there needs to be that connection to the government, of course, but we are now sucking up to the government. We are bringing them in and giving them snacks, giving them drinks, just so happy that they're gonna help us with the money of building a new masjid, a bigger masjid, and like we are becoming connected to them in kind of the wrong way, in a sense. Like we are giving them snacks and things like that, but when it's your own community, you're swearing in the parking lots and things like that. Just being aware of what's happening. There's a coined term called pious neoliberalism. We're talking about how that there's this the religious practice with capitalism, and how capitalism seeps into our places of worship, in terms of our ideologies, in terms of the faith market, in terms of product that's being done out there, the sincerity of it all. In paper? Yeah. In a minute, okay? The coin term pious neoliberalism, I'm not going to really talk about the academic side of it. I really wanted to hone in on one example. So my husband worked at a masjid as being a janitor. So he actually saw the internal um, facilitation of like what happens, and there's the board, and then there's people instructing him what to do, the characters of actually the kids, and like the messes that are happening inside the washrooms. There's a lot that goes on from a lens of a janitor. And one of the things that was discussed was we need to put money to like the TV, right? They were worrying about, we need a bigger TV, when we walk into the masjid, it should be in pristine condition. And there's a lot of say about improvements in regards to the aesthetic of the building, and in terms of making it bigger and bigger and bigger, and all of that. That is very, very true. They prioritize it being grand. They prioritize of the quality of the masjid, meaning that this masjid has this quality, meaning the design, right? There's something to pinpoint each masjid. How masjids were at the time of the Prophet ﷺ was way different. So the priorities of masjids now are very skewed. They only focus on the donor class. Like these are things that are happening in the masjid.
You want to find a masjid not because you're concerned for the ummah. You don't want your kids going bad. So you just, so we're focused on ourselves and ourselves and ourselves. Kind of that's the mentality, right? And even though we make our communities and masajid and centers and things like that, and mashallah, that's there, it's still, at the end of the day, very hyper-individualistic. It's not really caring for one another in this certain kind of way. Like, what's our great accomplishment? We're going to build a giant masjid. Okay? Now that we built a giant masjid, now we're going to have a gianter fundraiser to keep the masjid going. Because now the masjid we needed the masjid, now the masjid needs us.
I wanted to talk about media because this is ultimately how we click to donate, and a lot of things, how it's done nowadays is donating online. So like I mentioned earlier, we are coming from a perspective of really trying to donate fast. We are really, really stressed, we're really busy, we try to just donate and get good deeds, right? We're just trying to earn Allah's pleasure. We're trying to just donate here, donate there. Okay, seems like a good cause. We're kind of all over the place. So we're living in a time of it being rampant in the entertainment industry, where there's capitalism, and also the platform in which we are clicking to donate. It's not about a reflective period here, it's about selling something. Ultimately, organizations, they are in races, they are trying to race to get to you. We're living in like, this is humanitarian work, but it's also in a bigger scope here where there's a platform, what the platform is trying to sell you, like luxury and get readies with me and aesthetic stuff, right? It's a platform in which the content's in, and then it's also just the society at large, which we are in a capitalist society. So all of that layering on top of each other does impact the way that we perceive donation. So, the last point I want to conclude is something that I'm very passionate and something that my husband just mentioned the other day is that support the person beside you. And I think this is a bittersweet perspective, to be honest, because a lot of us, we try to support, our social media influencers. We try to support non-Muslim people that commit sins, like that do, like that. There's big uh, like Twitch streamers, and we try to support a lot of different people, but we don't support the people beside us that are doing great things, that may have a passion project for the community. Like, look around. I think that's basically what I'm trying to say, and that's why Allah even talks about our neighbors. The importance of our neighbors is they're literally right beside you, the people that are struggling the most. And it's time that we connect with those people during Ramadan and trying to uplift. Ultimately, what we're trying to do here, and I think this is the essence in which is missing, is that we're trying to bring Islam forward. And I think that's is ultimately why and how we should donate, is that we want to see Islam go forward. If I'm donating to the masjid, I want to see Islam being put forward in generations to come. If I'm donating to international aid, I want them to get their basic needs in which they can worship Allah better. Again, bringing Islam forward. If you see somebody who um, is doing something locally, wanting to connect their friends together, put money towards that. Let's, host an iftar. We're trying to ultimately bring Islam forward for our kids to see, for the world to see. Yeah, I just think that we need to start within our families and go upward. And what social media and things, they just try to say, like, this is an easy route, like build your house in Jannah, like that is easy, but the hard work underneath that, the charity that is not monetary is harder. And I think that should be our focus ultimately of the state of the ummah and how it is. That is it, because that's the way to combat capitalism, and that's the way to combat some of the other things. So assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I hope everyone is good. Enjoy, inshallah, your Ramadan. And inshallah, we will see you in the next video. Assalamu alaikum.